Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Secrets of the High Demand Coach podcast. And I am here with an awesome high demand coach, actually a scale architect as well. It is the one and only Dr. Melissa Bloom. She's the founder and CEO of Expanse Strategists, LLC, and she specializes in partnering with visionary, purpose-led CEOs to expand their businesses and achieve missions to transform society. Her history in various CXO roles and as president has cultivated a foundation of trust and empathy in her partnerships. Melissa is recognized as a business leader in the education space and also as a women's leadership expert. And as a respected thought leader and speaker, her focus on predictable success allows her to personalize her coaching and consultancy, leading teams toward transformative growth. She's the author of Queen Bee Chronicles, Empowering Women to Challenge Biases and Spark Change. And she's here with us today. Melissa, so excited to have you here. We get to chat like this often as a scale architect, but we finally get to hit record on one of these conversations. I'm very excited about that. But I know there's a whole lot more to your story than what we've got here in your bio, which was fantastic. But why don't you fill in some of the blanks for us? What were you doing before starting Expanse Strategists, and how did that ultimately lead you to make the leap?
Yeah, I was thinking about that recently, Scott, and I think to sum it up, I enjoy chaos, and I don't mind going into situations that are very undefined. My first real job out of college I was hired to open and literally create an aquatic center for my local community. And there are many times I think, why on earth did they entrust that to a 21-year-old who had never opened anything in her entire life? My only experience was being a lifeguard, but I didn't know any better. So it was fun and I really enjoyed it. And from there, I guess I just thought there's nothing I can't do if I want to do it. Went into education, really enjoyed being able to make a change for students and teachers. And then I went into corporate education, EdTech, was able to scale the company using predictable success, which is what led me to join you as a scale architect and put that out there for other EdTech and mission-based companies to get the same sort of result.
Yeah. How would you say that entrepreneurial edge has helped you as a coach or consultant? How does that shape the way that you look at problems that many of your clients are experiencing?
I understand where they are and that they aren't doing anything that's wrong, that it's not wrong to be in this place of uncomfortability, because when you're in that moment, it can feel like it. And sometimes you just need somebody to tell you that, right? Like, it's okay. You are where you are and you're supposed to be, but you don't have to live here forever.
Yeah. So a lot of our folks, they know about the predictable success model. They've heard Bless teach it, or they've heard about it on this show. But what would you say are some of the unique challenges that EdTech companies face, as they're progressing through, maybe even specifically in Whitewater?
Yeah. So education sector companies they face some interesting challenges in and of themselves just because it's the education sector. It's got a lot of nuances. And EdTech tends to start off as a small startup, a few people, right, in that early struggle stage, and they get to fun. And in order for an EdTech company to really scale and have impact, they need to have a very clear understanding of the education life, which means they end up starting to bring people in that are usually former educators. And the former educators don't always understand the business piece. So there's a real need for those former siloed teams to be able to speak the same language and come together. And it can create, if not done intentionally, a lot of mess. And so I really enjoy being able to be the speaker that brings people together to understand how to accomplish that mission and goal from where they start.
Yeah. So one of the challenges that pops up in the Whitewater stage generally is this issue of complexity, right?
Yes.
And so when you were helping lead when did you start to feel that first? What did that look like? Did you recognize it right away? Did it take a little while? Did it kind of hit you and like, man, this has been here for years? What was that process like for you guys?
When I joined Learning Sciences International, they had already purchased Predictable Success. We had not brought in less, but it was one of the books that I read for my onboarding. And I was supposed to read it and share where I thought the company was. And I knew right away that they were in whitewater, that they had reached this complexity stage. And again, knowing that whitewater wasn't a bad place to be, it was necessary. So I knew that. The complexities came from the silos. Like I was saying before, the company had just grown and there were more people and more leaders, and we hadn't put in the foundations yet to have effective communication and growth, let alone sustainable growth. And that impacts customers. And you know, that impacts bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say are some of the ways that you've helped overcome that, right? You have folks coming from such different backgrounds. You've got the tech aspect of it, which is its own culture. You've got the education act, which is its own culture. And then businesses in general tend to take on their own flair. How have you found the ability to really help bring those different spaces together and bring out the strengths and mitigate the weaknesses?
Because I love the predictable success model, and kind of fall back on that. The OPS assessment was really key, was a key starting place for us, because it allowed us to understand where each leader was coming from and what leadership styles we might be missing. I ended up being the synergist, which I guess I didn't anticipate that going in. So that was really interesting as I climbed through the C-suite. That was sort of a natural fit for me, but it was a piece that was missing when that leadership team was developing. And also having the enterprise commitment, that concept of we all are representing the good of the company instead of our individual departments, and really digging into what that meant for each of us became such a powerful grounding point. We opened every meeting with it. We said it out loud, and people were given the authority and autonomy and empowerment to say to other people, hey, that's not in the best interest of the enterprise. That's maybe the best interest of your department, not the enterprise. And that became the cog that allowed us to start working on the Tori levels or the management team levels for better communication and understanding who owned what in terms of autonomy. So people were, one of the frustrating things is people end up doing double work when you're not communicating effectively, right? And it maybe it's not even double work. It's somebody's doing this thing over here and somebody's doing this thing over here, and then you get together and you both worked on something and you didn't even come up with the same thing. So that is frustrating. But going through that process, we were able to really eliminate a lot of that, which makes a sales cycle in education a lot faster, because it's a very long sales cycle. And in that way, it increased our revenue line significantly.
I think that's one of the fascinating things, particularly about the whitewater stage, is that the things that you do to fix the problems that you have almost nothing to do with the problems that you experience, right?
No, right.
There's so many times that, you know, folks will be, we've got a sales problem or we have a profitability problem is a really big one, and they want to show you their P&L. It's like, okay, that's great. I can take a look at that, but that's not where the root issues are. Why is that?
I think it's just really easy to say we're not making the money that we want, so let's look at the sales team. And we definitely did that multiple times. Or let's look at the marketing team. How aren't we not marketing this? Which I think it's leftover from that early struggle fund stage, because that is the focus of the early struggle fund stage, right? It's sustainability of your market and product and buyer. But moving into whitewater, that's not the issue. It's the issue of the chaos that's created by not having effective systems and processes. And so once we fix that, we've stopped putting Band-Aids on things. And sometimes it does mean that the sales team needs to do something differently. But if you just continue to fix the little piece that you've always fixed and ignore everything else, usually not the right answer.
Yeah. One of the challenges that I see is you kind of mentioned this is like, well, this is how we've done it, right? This is
Right.
how it's worked, and one of the places I've found that kind of shows up as ineffective, right, or just
Very.
incomplete is
Yeah.
uh, this idea of is it that person not keeping up, or is it the team not keeping up, or are we asking them to do something that they can't actually do? How do you help teams to start to kind of create some clarity around that?
The one fact that the principal success model starts with the org chart, and really having that conversation about heads versus hats or roles versus people, was really critical for us and for other companies that I've talked to, because it's not often a conversation they've had to begin with. The org chart has sort of kind of layered itself as the company has grown, but the concept of how those roles are represented has not, nor their roles and responsibilities and what they actually are entitled or authorized to do. So doing that in combination with looking at the best fit for that role with the leadership styles was very enlightening. Sometimes, as you know, people aren't in the best seat for that particular need, and they can be moved to a better fit role. And sometimes, and I just had a conversation with the founder about this, sometimes when you're moving from that fun stage to whitewater and knowing you want to get to predictable success, there are people that aren't going to enjoy that stage at all. And that honest conversation allows both of the founder of the company and the person to decide if this is the track they want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where I found you can't really address that until you've laid the foundation and until
No,
you've created the clarity in the first
right.
place, and that's hard work. How do you help a
Yes.
team to kind of what would you say to a team? Let me ask you this way: that's sitting there thinking, you want us to work on an org chart, like you want us to spend that when we've got all this real work to do. What would you say to a team that's just struggling with that right now?
Honestly, that's sometimes the first reaction, but then when we start to dig into it, there's real value in it, because they begin to see how that lays out the rest of the organization to follow. One thing that I really like doing with teams once the roles are defined is is relaunching them, so to speak, into their new or what should have been in the first place, their roles and responsibilities. And we actually talk about, um, here's the role of a manager or a leader at your level. What does that and what does that look like? What decisions do you have the authority to make? What decisions should you pass up to the next leadership level? Which ones need to be communicated down? And really, what is that authority and autonomy? And then having a communication with the levels above and below that, so that we begin to understand that flow of communication. And that can't happen if the org chart's not right,
Yeah.
because it doesn't represent the flow of communication.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of folks don't have an org chart at all, but some do. Maybe they call it an org chart, an accountability chart, a people chart, whatever it's called. Different names for it. But I've seen a common mistake where folks use it to describe kind of what is or what happened like 9 years ago, the last time they touch it.
Yes.
What is the real value of an org chart, and can it be more than just kind of a flow chart with some names on it?
Yeah. I think a flow chart has, or sorry, I think an org chart has the ability to be a living document. And just like we should be doing strategic planning, not just one time a year, but over the intervals of the year, I think looking at the org chart several times a year is also important, uh, because it needs to manifest itself to support the organization. If you're an organization in Whitewater and you're trying to grow, you should, it's okay. It doesn't have to be bound and laminated and put, behind glass. So I think it's a really powerful tool to say, are we operating daily the way that this kind of document has laid out? And if not, which one needs to change?
Yeah. We've I just realized we've kind of mentioned this whitewater, and a lot of our audience knows about the different stages. But I'm wondering for you, because your specialty's in the ed tech space. I'm wondering if you could just kind of lay out, someone's listening today, what are some symptoms that they should be looking for that might indicate that they're in whitewater as a team?
So I always think about that a company has been successful. They've burned a profit for several years. Usually their team has figured out how to do things, but then they get stuck in terms of trying to get it past the point that they've reached before. They've probably started hiring on more people and are really seeing the benefit of having hired those people. So that complexity starts to get going. Balls start getting dropped with customers because oftentimes a founder is still very involved in sales and is trying to kind of operate the same way they used to in terms of selling things that may not even be products yet. So there begins to be a lot of frustration and, some disengagement within the teams that just sort of breeds from that complexity.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about the org chart. We talked a little bit about lateral management, getting people to work together, cross functionality.
Yeah.
For a moment, what's it look like on the other side? If we get this right, what's available to us as leaders, especially in that ed tech space?
It's completely a different world. I mean, all of a sudden things are more efficient. Your meeting is you don't have calendars completely chock full of meetings that you're sitting in and wondering why are there in the first place, because you know who's supposed to be making decisions at certain levels. You as a founder know that you're going to not be out of the loop because there are people in place to pass along what you need to know. You know that your revenue is going to continue to grow because people are in the right seats and doing the right things for that to happen. It's a place where you can actually sit back and see the fruits of your labors without pulling your hair out every night, or working, 12, 13 hours a day to get things moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So there's a question I like to ask all my guests, and you may have heard it before. It is this: what is the biggest secret you wish just wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish everybody watching or listening today knew?
I would say that there's a better way, and that no one should go through that phase alone. That it's worth it to reach out and have somebody assist you, because once you're to that better side, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think what's so hard about it, especially for a lot of founders, it's just their first time doing it, right? They may have worked in bigger companies. They may have even worked in smaller companies, but that whitewater stage is just, it's so uncommon in one sense, right? Because you're not there forever. It's just one of the stages of
Right.
7, but it's all over the place. Every single organization has to go through it. So I know for me as a founder, whenever I was leading my previous company, it felt isolating. Like it felt like if, if we can't figure this out, and we can't find what do I Google? There's too many
Right.
problems, and that feeling of loneliness. It sounds a little trivial. A lot of people say it, but it's so real in that stage,
It is.
and it doesn't
It
have to
is.
be.
No, it doesn't. And there's a lot of, you're Googling it. There's a lot out there that makes you think you're doing it wrong, or you can get out of it with just this one little simple fix. And I think a lot of people stay in that stage a lot longer than they need to, or they stop and give up.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. So for those who don't want to give up, for those who they've just got that inspiration that they needed to get to predictable success and take their ed company there with them, but they need help doing it. How can they find out more about you and the work that you do?
My website is www.expansestrategist.com, and it has information about me and my services. But my purpose in working with EdTech and education companies to get them to predictable success is because there are so many great missions. And I do believe that our education system needs those, and they need to be able to scale to do that. We can't do it alone. So that's how they can reach me. That's really the purpose behind my work.
That's amazing. I love that. There's some great resources on the site. I've had a chance to check it out. I'd highly recommend it. The report there in particular is fantastic. And Melissa, just an honor and privilege having you on the show. So fun to finally hit record on one of our conversations. Doing phenomenal work in this space, and I'm excited to see more companies really flourish and thrive with your help. So check it out. Expanse, it's -strategist.com if I remember correctly.
It's just one word.
One word.
Strategist.
Got it.
Yep.
We'll get it in the show notes. You can click on it there. Stop listening to me.
Thank you.
And but yeah, it's a fantastic site, and I know folks will find it very helpful. Thanks for being on the show. For those of you watching and listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.